quite different from the sort of sport squires enjoyed about their estates, and Sir Oliver was clearly not up to the challenge. But if the fellow had spared any notice for his wife and daughter instead of his dogs, Sir Oliver was purported to be a top breeder of long-haired setters, neither of them would be in this tangle. Sebastian cursed the day he'd ever laid eyes on Miss Rosamond Blanchard. He had flirted with her at a ball 2 years ago out of boredom, but she had taken a few witty exchanges as permission to literally throw herself at him, while he had strolled through a back garden looking for an exit. He'd barely managed to extricate himself from her greedy assault with his breeches, and virtue intact. She'd flung herself at him at every available opportunity thereafter, even going so far as to visit his rooms under cover of night at a house party. Her mission had apparently been seduction. To Sebastian, it had felt more like an attack. Her rather indiscreet pursuit, or rather stalking, of him was one of the reasons he had left the country in the first place. When she had turned up in Venice 8 months ago at a party hosted by a mutual acquaintance, and attempted to renew her fervent suit with the help of her scheming mother, Sebastian had been so disgusted he had left for the Levant the following day. Miss Blanchard was, suffice to say, a bit unbalanced. Well, more than a bit. Totally cracked in the head was a more apt description. But he had thought, surely, that his sojourn in the Holy Land would provide enough geographical distance to allow Miss Blanchard to recover her errant wits. He was, alas, quite mistaken. Imagine his surprise to discover, upon his return to England, that Miss Blanchard was breeding, and that she had named him as the father. He was alone in his surprise, however. The whole of London seemed to be acquainted with the sordid and fictional affair, and had already judged him guilty as charged. Sir Oliver had demanded satisfaction. Marry his daughter or else. Sebastian had not hesitated to choose or else. He'd sooner marry his pianoforte, and so he'd told the old codger. Sir Oliver had been unprepared for this turn of events, however. He'd assumed Sebastian would do the gentlemanly thing. Ha! Clearly Sir Oliver had not been apprised of the fact that Sebastian had been accused of being many things in his 30-odd years, but not once had a gentleman been mentioned. Sir Oliver's second, Colonel Firth, hovered at the squire's side, unable to hide his irritation. Firth was a Scotsman, with hair an eyeball-searing shade of ginger, surpassing even the Duchess of Montfort's fiery mane in its intensity, and an alarming outbreak of freckles all over his fair skin. He speared Sebastian with a look that could only be described as murderous as he inspected Sir Oliver's pistol. Sebastian arched his brow in return and smirked, since he knew it would further irritate the hot-blooded Scot. He was right. Colonel Firth's spotted complexion was fast approaching the colour of his hair. Sebastian had never liked Colonel Firth. They had served together on the peninsula, and Sebastian had witnessed enough of that man's true character to give him a wide berth and absolutely no respect. Firth was the type of man who would have ordered his company to its death for his own personal glory. He had, in fact, done just that at Corunna, while remaining ensconced in the relative safety of his field tent. 5 out of the 100 men under his command had survived, yet he had been promoted, hailed as a hero. He was, in Sebastian's opinion, a grossly incompetent bastard. The fact that the Scot was Sir Blanchard's crony did little to recommend the squire's taste in company to Sebastian. And if he had to hazard a guess, he suspected it was the colonel who had put his friend up to this ridiculous duel. Though what personal vendetta the Scot had against him, he could not imagine. Marlowe checked Sebastian's pistol and handed it back to him, nodding curtly, though Sebastian saw the worry in his friend's eyes. He and Marlowe had parted company 2 years ago on shaky terms. Marlowe had accused him of being too reckless with his own skin after the fire at Rylstone Hall, when he had rushed into the burning castle to rescue an errant pig.